Rabbi Amijai Lau-Lavie. You are some controversial people. Some say you're interesting, others say you are, I don't know, controversial, let's say it, like we were talking. But why? What is that people think about you?
You would have to ask them.
All right.
I'm not sure what controversial means, but I think I am someone who has chosen to walk the path of truth. And that sometimes means saying things that people don't like to hear.
All right.
I'm 56 years old.
You look younger, by the way.
What?
You look younger, right? Like 55.
Thank you. 55 is what I'm going for. Great. Thank you for not being an ageist.
Yes.
I don't know about controversy, but I will say that I am an openly gay rabbi. I was born in Israel. I live in New York. I have 3 children. I go back and forth between Israel and New York, and I decide not to be full pro-Israel or full pro-Palestine, but both. And so whether it's my gay identity, whether it's the fact that I'm a trained conservative rabbi, but I have strong opinions about liberal values, whether it's my political peacemaking, everybody nowadays has an opinion, and everybody thinks somebody else who has a different opinion is controversial. So controversial is subjective. I don't know. You'll talk to me and you tell me what you think is controversial.
You came from a long life and generations of rabbis, Orthodox rabbis.
Yes.
How did you decide to be a rabbi and a non-Orthodox rabbi? How was it?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So I am the 39th generation of rabbis on my father's side. Rabbi Lau, my uncle, was the former chief rabbi of Israel. His son,
we know him.
So his son, Rabbi Lau, also, my cousin, was also the former Ashkenazi chief rabbi. My brother, Benny Lau, is a very prominent Orthodox rabbi in Israel. So we go back. I grew up on this lineage of rabbis, and I also grew up under the shadow of the Holocaust. My grandfather, Moshe Chaim Lau, was the last rabbi of a large city in Poland, and he perished in Treblinka. And his legacy to my father was to make sure that the rabbinic line continues. And so for my father, it was really important that his younger brother, my uncle, become the rabbi. And I did not want to become a rabbi when I was a younger man. I wanted to be a teacher, a storyteller. I came out gay in my teens. And for a long time, it was either I'm Jewish or gay.
All right. Also for your family.
When I grew up in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, the option of being both a religious Jew and somebody who's openly gay was actually not an option. You had to choose. So I chose. I chose away from the Jewish house that I grew up with. But I missed so much of Jewish life that I did not want to lose. So I began finding ways to integrate. I eventually moved from Israel to the United States, to New York, and I started exploring ways of being Jewish that isn't the Orthodox that I grew up with. Reform, conservative, Reconstructionist, renewal, all the different ways of being Jewish, including being gay or being whatever you want. And I found ways to be who I am. Eventually, I can tell you all the details, but eventually I decided that I do want to be a rabbi, that I want to continue the family line, and that I'm going to be a rabbi on my own terms, which means liberal, which means progressive, which means gay, which means Jewish, and continuing the line in a new way. I'm generation 39. Generation 40 already has several rabbis, my nephews and nieces, my nephews and cousins, and one niece.
All right.
My brother's daughter, who's studying to be a rabbi in Israel. So we're already giving the Lau family a modern twist.
Tell me something. You're talking about a modern twist, and you're talking about changing things, but for some of people that will be against religion. If I ask, some gay people will say, no, it's not against religion, but I have a rabbi in front of me who can tell me if it's against or not against religion, if in some part of if the Torah says you cannot be gay, or it says you can be. Or in your other case, it can be a woman rabbi. That's another thing to talk later.
Let's start with women rabbis. Okay?
All right.
I mean, let's start there.
Yes.
Okay? For many, many generations, the Judaism we knew was a male-centered Judaism.
Yes.
Only men can fit in the minyan. Only men can be rabbis. God is a male. It is a men-first religion. Women have their place in the home, but they're in the back. Feminism came around over 100 years ago. Women today can be the president of Argentina.
From Mexico.
Sorry. Did I say Argentina? I meant Mexico. I don't know who's the president of Argentina.
I meant Mexico. Somebody that likes it. All right. But it was some president. It was already there, a woman president.
By the way, I'm assuming you're editing this.
Oh, don't worry. So continue.
Okay. You can have a woman who's the president of Argentina, and you can have a woman who's the head of the Supreme Court in Israel. Yes. You can have women in top positions in business and in medicine and in law. Can Judaism evolve from what it was to what it is now for the sake of human dignity, human equality, human freedom, and the right of women to be as valid as men? I say, way before me, people say, of course women can be rabbis. Of course women can have the same right as men in counting in the minyan, in having the same rights when it comes to divorce. We can move from the patriarchal misogyny that for many, many generations we had, that we think is Torah from Sinai, and we can still be 100% Jewish. There are many women rabbis today in all liberal denominations, including modern Orthodox. And this is a shift in the last 150 years. After thousands of years of Judaism, it's a big dramatic change, and I think it's a good change. Because it gives us equality.
But for the majority of the Orthodox, it's still not the same. Because they said, or some places said, that the woman doesn't have to be more close to religion or to be rabbis than that, because they are already illuminating the war and has all that. I'm not
going to talk for all the ways in which people prefer the system to be what it is. With all due respect to my Orthodox family, people who are watching, I will respect your opinion. And I want women to have the same rights men do. I have 3 children, 2 of them are daughters. I'm going to say to my son, you be a rabbi, and my daughter, no. Because it used to be this way. We used to offer sacrifices in the temple. We used to believe that slaves were okay. We used to believe a lot of things. We keep changing. Judaism is not a museum. Judaism is a live thing. And so we evolve. Now, I was born gay. I didn't choose to be born gay. When it was my bar mitzvah and I was 13, I was standing in the synagogue, chanting the Torah. My bar mitzvah portion is about many things, including the law that says a man who sleeps with another man should be killed. And at 13, I stood on the bima and I chanted, Ve'et zachar lo tishka, and thinking, what am I going to do with this? Now, I'm lucky. I was born at a time where being gay was not something that you have to be ashamed about, and you have to hide, and you have to be lonely, and you have to be somebody who either in the closet or kills himself. I know quite a few people who chose to kill themselves because they were not allowed to be gay. And I think we all do. And so there's a question of pikuach nefesh. There's a question of human life and human dignity. At 13, I did not have the permission to come out, but I began to ask questions. And I was lucky to have a family that loved me, even when I came out, and a family that affirmed me being who I am. And when I did decide to become a rabbi in the conservative movement in New York at the Jewish Theological Seminary, it was only because in 2006, the conservative movement voted, after 10 years, to allow gay and lesbian students to become rabbis. And what the movement said, in a very dramatic statement, we have 2 choices. We can keep the Torah as is and say that being gay is an abomination, or we can say kvod habriot, human dignity. We are choosing human dignity. We are progressing. We are not always going to be who we were. We have to evolve. So I want to say that when I was at the conservative movement, I was only the 2nd person out gay to be a rabbi. Nowadays, there are dozens. In fact, there was a study in New York, in the United States, a month ago. 51% of people who are studying for the rabbinate in the United States, in non-Orthodox seminaries, Reform, Conservatives, Reconstructionists, all of the above, 51% are LGBT. 51%. So, if we ask the Orthodox, the number might be higher, except they wouldn't say so. So I say, let's embrace human dignity, let's embrace human freedom without compromising Torah, without compromising Jewish law, just knowing the Jewish law can evolve. And there's a law in the Torah about human sex. Okay, there are many things that change. Women are not property, and individual sexual choice is a dignity.
But it's not a problem for you or for everybody, or that first, the parasha you read, it says, a man that sleeps with a man has to be killed, or the second, a man thanking God to be born a man, not a woman. You every morning, in the morning, people pray, thanks God for making me a man. So is that not a problem that shocks with the religion? I know that it can change, but what it has continued, has given the, I don't know, it's the only culture that has lived for over 3,000 years, the Jewish culture, because it has a continuity. Many will say it's the same that it was 3,000 years ago. So that's not a problem when you say about it, or how has it been for you and for you?
Torah,
Yes.
the thing called Torah,
Yes.
is two things. The written Torah, Torah shebichtav, the book as is, and Torah sheba'al peh,
Yes.
the spoken Torah. Torah that keeps being created. Midrash, interpretation, commentary, new halachic thinking keeps emerging in every generation. So even though the Torah in Leviticus says what it says about abomination and about killing, we don't execute people today for being gay or for other things that the Torah says. We know that in every generation we have new interpretation. If you think the Torah is a closed book, whether God wrote it or not, then you're living in a museum and it's behind glass.
Well, we don't do the same korban, not that
Exactly.
we did that.
Exactly.
Years ago.
We evolve. So the Torah, I read the verse in Leviticus, and I read it for what it is, a historical relic of my tradition that does not serve human well-being, dignity, joy, or life. If I can save a life, I will save a life. The number of teenagers who try to commit suicide because they are gay is higher than other numbers of teenagers all over the world, and in Israel, and in the Jewish community. I want any rabbi or any Jewish person listening to me right now saying to me that they prefer the Torah and Jewish law over the life of their son or daughter. And thank God, in the last 30 years, there have been many rabbis and activists, including in this country, who are saying we can embrace sexual choice and Jewish life. It isn't either or, it can be both and. And there are many Jewish families who are gay, and there are many gay families like mine that can do both Jewish life and queer life, and it's not anti-Torah or anti-Judaism, it is pro-life, pro-Judaism, pro-who we are. So we can put that aside. Now the prayer book, yes, there are many prayers in the prayer book that are problematic. And the prayer book is also not exactly a book that you have to do from beginning to end. We have choice. I have a synagogue in New York, Lab Shul. We serve thousands of people. We have hundreds of families. Some are Jewish, some are people who are not Jewish, who married Jews. Some are queer, some are straight, some are Zionist, some are anti-Zionist. We pray together. We don't use the Siddur, the prayer book, from A to Z. We pick and choose. We find where we start with gratitude with Modeh Ani, not saying, I'm glad I'm not a Gentile, I'm glad I'm not a woman. I'm glad for being alive. And we open the translations of the poetry from Hebrew to English in a way that every human being, if they believe in God or not, and many don't, still have a spiritual experience. So we have to take what we received from our parents, from our grandparents, with gratitude, and say, I'm going to keep some of it, but not all of it. Because what was in the 18th century, or the 14th century, or even the 20th century, is not exactly what I need in the 21st century. And change is tricky. You can't change everything. You have to change slowly.
That's what I was testing.
You have to change slowly, but you have to change. Because I'm not my grandfather, and I'm not my father, and I'm not my great-great-grandfather. The first generation of the 39 is Rashi. Okay? So, a lot of respect to the generation. But again, I'm not a museum. I'm a kitchen. We keep cooking new things. And when you cook new things, you take your grandmother's chicken soup recipe. It is holy. And maybe you add a little recipe because it's okay. We have to evolve. If we don't evolve, if we don't change, we're static. And if you're static, you're not dynamic. And let me say one more thing. I don't know what's happening exactly in the Mexican Jewish community, but around the world, the Jewish population is in crisis. The synagogues are empty. People are choosing different spiritual paths. People are finding ways to be Jewish that are not exactly what used to be. Now the Orthodox, the ultra-Orthodox, to an extent are staying inside the box. 10 to 15% of Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox Jews are leaving all the time. You know how I know? Because they come to me.
Exactly.
They come to my synagogue and they say, I grew up Chabad, or I grew up Shas, or I grew up Bnei Akiva, or I grew up modern Orthodox. And it's not about being gay or straight or whatever. I am not finding my voice in the old synagogue of my parents. I want something that's more vibrant. I want something that's real. I want something that is politically critical of Israel, but still loves Israel. I want a place that is messy, that meets my modern life. And they come to me. And so I know, and there are many rabbis like me in the United States, in Europe, in Israel, who are creating a compromise, who are taking the past, but thinking about the future. And that's a little messy.
Tell me something. You created Lab Shul. What it means? Short answers. What it means, Lab Shul?
Lab Shul is a laboratory and a shul, meaning we are doing experiments with religion.
Right.
We are addressing a generation that isn't comfortable in the shul of old and is looking for new ways of doing shul. So for instance, we do Kabbalat Shabbat once a month. It is a big musical service. People come who are Jewish, not Jewish, all ages. And we take highlights of the tefillah, not the whole Friday night service. Hundreds of people come and they love it.
Why only once a month and not every Friday?
Because my crowd won't come every Friday. They're happy with a good Shabbat experience once a month.
All right. That changed a little bit because for many that will think like saying, are you rescuing Jews or we are losing Jews? Because for Jews it's important to be every Friday, not for all. Not everybody goes to Shul on Friday or do a Kabbalah Shabbat or do on Shabbat. Nobody, not many goes on Shabbat. But saying, I only will do it once a month, or I will just respect this sometimes, and is that not losing a little bit about Jews, or letting Jews go out, or do you think that's bringing them back together? Sometime a rabbi told me, when there was a mixed marriage, he told me, I prefer to gain one person than to lose two. So, what is for you about that? Short answer, because if not, we won't do it on Shabbat there.
And you have to edit. Look, my job is the emergency room of Jewish life. The majority of young Jews and many Jews have lost their access to Judaism. We can talk about why, okay? Blah, blah, blah. But that is the fact. Many young Jews and many Jews don't feel like Judaism has something to offer their spiritual lives, their intellectual lives, their aesthetic lives. I create a kind of Jewish life that people feel, oh, it speaks to me. It meets my modern self. I don't have to put my modern self aside. I can be who I am. So once a month is a great start. You want more? Great. Do more. Yom Kippur, I have 2,000 people coming. They come once a year. But once they come once a year and they really like it, they're going to want more. They're going to want a bar mitzvah. They're going to want to be involved in Jewish learning. They're going to be involved in Jewish chesed, in giving. But you can't begin with a full plate. You have to begin with baby steps. So that's why me and many others are in the emergency room, of giving modern Jews an access back into a Judaism that is authentic, that is exciting, that is liberal, that is feminist, that is queer, that is politically progressive, but doesn't compromise Jewish spirituality, doesn't compromise depth. Once a month is a good start.
Is there something in Judaism or in religious that cannot be changed, that it has to be the same to say we are Jews, that you want, I don't know, saying to drive on Shabbat, we can do it, I don't know. Eat pork, I don't know, we can do it. It's if you like it, I don't know. Is there discussion laws, is there any law in Judaism or in culture that you will say that I won't touch by any way?
Look, I wouldn't say it's the law, but I would say it's the essence. Shabbat, the essence of Shabbat, I wouldn't touch it. We need Shabbat. Now your Shabbat might be different than my Shabbat. Yes. You might drive on Shabbat or not drive on Shabbat. You might eat on Shabbat a special food or go to the synagogue. I don't know. But Shabbat is the biggest gift we have. And it is the way to keep your life sane, not to be a human doing, but a human being. And to sit around the table with your family on Shabbat is a gift for the soul. How you do Shabbat, we can argue about. But Shabbat has been there from the very beginning. We can argue about other things, but I would say there are three things that define Jewish life. And I'm quoting the Talmud here. Torah, learning, we have to keep learning. We have to know our stories. We have to know our mythologies. We have to keep studying. Otherwise, we're just recycling. Number one, Torah. Number two, avodah. Avodah means soul work. You have a soul. And whether you pray in the morning or you meditate, whether you say thank you when you go up, you get up in the morning, or when you say Kaddish, we have practice for the soul. We need soul work. Our soul needs attention. So that's avodah. You can call it prayer, you can call it spirituality. And the third is chesed, tzedakah. We don't just take care of me, we take care of each other. We support each other, we volunteer, we do what we can for the community. Those three things are the must. How you do them, we can discuss.
All right. You said something important, Shabbat, Sabbath. And you have a very interesting movie now, and a character there called Queen Shabbat, or Sabbath Queen. See, tell us a little bit about it, because you said you didn't get like that, but it's an iconic thing that has been in the United States, that it has a documentary now, a film that is going to be shown in Mexico, and it's all around the world. Yes. Tell us a little bit about who is Sabbath Queen.
Well, let me talk about the movie. So the movie is called Sabbath Queen. It is directed by Sandy Dubowski, who's a very well-known American Jewish director. Yeah. People in Mexico may know him because in 2000, Sandy directed a movie called Trembling Before God. It was the first documentary about gay and lesbian Orthodox Jews who refused to choose between being Orthodox or being gay. And that movie changed the world about acceptance and about tolerance and about LGBT acceptance in the Jewish world. Sandy wanted me to be in the movie, and I didn't want to be in the movie because I was no longer Orthodox. So he started making a movie about me, about my theater, about my drag, that I'll tell you about in a moment, and about me becoming a rabbi and making very, in your words, controversial choices.
Or radical.
Or radical. I will take radical. Anyway, the movie Sabbath Queen was 21 years in the making as a documentary.
21 years.
21 years Sandy was filming, and it was finished in the summer of 23, and it was ready to go. And then
it changes a lot of things during the filmation.
Correct.
From the in-laws, in aspect, in spirituality. It changes a lot of things in these 23 years, 21 years.
So the film was ready to be edited in the summer of 23, and then October 7th happened. And right after October 7th, I went back to Israel to be with my family, to volunteer, to help my Israeli family, help Palestinian peacemakers. And I've been back and forth in Israel 20 times since.
The next time you don't want to go, please send me. I can go there. Instead of you, or I can go with you. No problem.
Come with me. I'm there all the time. There's plenty of work to do. We need to do a lot.
I go to work. No problem. No problem.
So we'll do it. But I called Sandy and
I send you my address and my tickets, so you can send me the tickets and everything.
I'm sure you will find a sponsor, and I will welcome you. Anyway, when I was there in the trauma of the first weeks after October 7th, I called Sandy and I said, the film is not ready.
All right.
You need to add a scene that talks about what we just went through. Because this film is going to be out in the world as a Jewish film. There's no way it's not going to talk about what we just experienced and what might still happen.
Yes.
So the film actually now ends with a scene shot in Tel Aviv in front of the hostage wall shortly after October 7th, but we began filming after September 11th. So it shows the first 2 decades of the 21st century. And it's about me and about my journey as a Jewish thinker, storyteller, artist, drag queen, rabbi. I know you want to hear about the drag queen. I'll talk about her in a minute. But mostly it's about how the world and the Jewish world evolved and is evolving. It's not about terror. It's not about trauma. It's about resilience. And it's about change. So it's a very powerful...
We will talk later about what you put about 7 on October, what you think about it, but you were going to tell us a little bit.
So anyway, one of the things I did in my life was becoming a character in a theatrical setting called Hadassah Gross, who's a Rebbetzin, who's the widow of 6 rabbis and who is a Kabbalah teacher. I started Hadassah.
Of 6 rabbis?
6 rabbis.
Not 5, 6. It has to be 6. All
6. Right. Avram Goss, Yitzchak Goss, Yaakov Goss, Yosef Goss, David Goss, and Moshe Goss.
Okay.
6. The 7th will be the Mashiach.
All right.
And it started on Purim with a lot of vodka, because that's what happens on Purim. Just for fun, Hadassah showed up, and people said, wow, she's so smart and funny. Bring her back. So I brought her back the following Purim. That was 98, 99. And then a year later, they're like, she needs her own show.
All right.
So we started the Hadassah Gross Show. And the Rebbetzin became quite famous in Israel, in the States. She started touring. And she was a way of doing Yiddishkeit, but with a joke, with a mask,
yes,
with humor. And people who are allergic to Judaism or religion were like, this is actually interesting. I want to hear more. So it was sort of outreach, but it was also chutzpah. And it allowed me to be very religious and spiritual, but with a mask. Like, I don't know how you say in Spanish, but in English we say the court jester, the clown who can tell the truth.
Exactly.
So Hadassah for 10 years traveled the world. And after 10 years, I thought, okay, Diana, enough. She gave me the permission to be who I am. And then I thought, I don't need to be the rabbi's wife. It's time for me to be the rabbi. So the film includes the evolution from Hadassah, who's not the Sabbath Queen, but that's fine, whatever, into me as rabbi, and about what does it mean to really evolve and ask questions about Judaism and sexuality and our role in the world and what is our purpose.
You told that Hadassah let you talk about the things you could not talk like a normal person, people. It's different when you are on a mask, when you are these guys. You can talk different, you can joke, you can do whatever. You can love from Judaism also. Is there something that you learn other people about Judaism, Jews and non-Jews, when you were Hadassah?
I learned the importance of humor,
yes,
not to always take ourselves so seriously, yes, but I also learned that what people really, really want is the experience of the sacred. I'll give you an example.
yes.
Okay, we just had Hanukkah. One of the ways, and you can see it in the movie, Hadassah made magic. She would go to gay clubs and would do a Hanukkah candle lighting. Now, some gay Jews were so anti-religion and anti-Judaism because they were rejected by Judaism. So they didn't even want Hanukkah. It was too painful. And other Jews just didn't know what Hanukkah was about. It's like it's the Jewish Christmas. So there it is in a gay club. Hadassah does candle lighting and explains the secret of light against darkness, blah, blah, blah. And everybody sort of stopped and really felt the sacredness, the uniqueness of this ritual that is anti-despair, midwinter ritual that we've done for thousands of years. People would be crying and people would be feeling it. And it taught me that if you do things well, if you don't do things by autopilot, but really slow down and create meaning, people want meaning. And one way to bring Jews back to Judaism and people back to their soul is to slow down and to make ritual really meaningful, and sometimes to use humor. And after using drag for a long time, I thought I can still do it without the makeup. So
Hadassah is sleeping in a room waiting to come out again, or it's coming out sometimes? What is happening with Hadassah?
Good question. 10 years ago, Hadassah Gross decided that she needs to go save the Shekhinah, the Jewish divine feminine, from her prison, which is under the Dead Sea, the lowest place on earth. So Hadassah went into the Dead Sea to save the Shekhinah from patriarchy, and she made a video, and she said, it will take a long time. Don't wait up. I'll let you know. So she's still there.
And tell me something. Now that after what happened on 7th of October, and not just what happened...
Big switch. Okay.
No. I'm not going with that. What happened in 7th of October, I'm not talking about the war. What happened in the Jewish communities around the world. Some get together and say, we have to get again together, it doesn't matter who we are, but also it was an increase of anti-Semitism, of people that doesn't know whatever it's being Jewish. They don't know, even people that don't know who is Jewish or not Jewish, it's beginning more and more anti-Semitic. There is now a controversial thing in New York with the mayor saying he's anti-Semitic, he's not, if the 21% of his people are anti-Semitic or not. It's not that time for Hadassah or for somebody to get out and say, Jews are like everybody, but we have some differences, but we have here this kind, this, we are. What is happening now, and what do you recommend? Because now it's different. It's not a time for somebody like Hadassah to speak about Jews, to speak up for a public and for a Jewish and non-Jewish world about what is happening.
This is a difficult moment. I don't know exactly what's happening in Mexico. I can tell you that in New York City, in the United States, in Europe, I'm traveling with this film, there is a huge surge of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. There is a huge confusion and conflict among the Jews, and we need a lot of help. We need a lot of repair, and we're in deep trauma. We're not post-trauma, we're in trauma. Maybe Hadassah Gross and other cultural icons can be helpful. For the rest of our lifetimes, we're going to need all the help we can get, all the creativity. One thing I know as a Jewish historian is that crisis brings creativity. The Bible was composed as a response to the crisis of the exile. The Talmud and the oral tradition of Torah was created in response to the destruction of the temple. Kabbalah was created in response to the crisis of the Spanish expulsion. Israel was created as a response to the Shoah. We are in a moment of another crisis, and the creativity is going to create a Judaism that is stronger and can hold many complexities. What is it going to look like exactly? It's hard to tell because we're in the middle of it. Now, anti-Semitism is worse than ever. It is. My own daughter in her school in New York came back and said somebody drew a swastika on my desk. Right? This is a public school in New York City. This is least of the bad examples.
But it's hard. How old is your daughter? How old is she?
15.
All right. It's hard when you see it and you're just beginning and say, somebody put it.
Yeah.
You have you feel bad, but you feel angry, and you want to hit the other guy, and it's...
First
and
thing,
you come to your house and say, what should I do?
Let's sit down and talk about it. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? What is this about? Why do you think this is happening? My child is the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor, right? They know the story. My father survived, and we are who we are. I think it's on us at this point, first of all, not to be in panic, but also not to be complacent. We have to understand that we're in a very difficult situation. I can tell you about New York, I can tell you about the work in Israel, I can tell you the work that I'm doing with Israelis and Palestinians who refuse to be enemies still, now more than ever, and I can tell you about the work that is happening in my community in New York to create conversations.
Where this controversial mayor went to your community.
Yeah. Before Yom Kippur, we have
Mamdani went there.
We received a request from Mamdani's team for him to be with us on Yom Kippur for the prayers. And we're like, okay, that's interesting.
Why would you there in New York, you pick up a stone and you find a Jewish Orthodox Jew? It's not like, I don't know where to go.
The reason Mamdani came to us was, number one, his number two is a kid who grew up in my community.
All right.
And his top advisor is on my board.
All right.
Also, we are a very inclusive congregation, and since October 7th, I came out as somebody who is a Zionist and who is pro-peace, who stands with Israeli suffering and with Palestinian suffering, and constantly create dialogue and space for courageous conversations about peace. We have to honor the peacemakers. Last Yom Kippur, we had an Israeli and a Palestinian peacemaker on our bima, on our stage for Kol Nidrei to talk to us about atonement and about repair, etc., etc. So Mamdani approached us. First of all, if somebody says, I want to come pray with you,
you say yes.
You say yes. And then you think about the political PR.
Exactly.
So we...
And the security and...
So we made two decisions. One of them I'm happy about, the other no. First of all, we contacted my board and my funders and the members, and we got a vote, and people said, we're not endorsing him. This is not saying vote for him. This is saying we're praying with him, number one. Number two, I wanted him to hear my sermon, which is about Zionism and how Zionism needs to reinvent itself from what it is now to a much more inclusive Zionism that I as an Israeli can live with, and that anti-Semites need to understand that they can't do what they're doing. I wanted him to hear it, and he did. And we wanted to build a bridge. If he is, at the time we said, if he's going to be the mayor of New York, he needs to know rabbis like me. He needs to know congregations like us, and we need to be a place that welcomes dialogue, not closes the door. So, we welcomed him. He was there with 3 other senators and congressmen, Jews from the American Jewish community, and he stayed for 2 hours. And afterwards, the condition was that after, he and I meet, like the week after, for a few hours and talk about it, which we did.
And what was it? What did he talk about? What did he say about it? That's interesting because...
I can't tell you everything, but I can tell you...
Oh, tell us the secret.
I can tell you the important things.
Yes.
The important thing is that Zohar Mamdani is 37 years old, and is a very young man who grew up in a very particular milieu, very different than mine. His views about Israel, about Netanyahu, about Zionism are very different than mine. And he has a long way to go in learning about nuance and learning about complexity. Will he change his mind? Maybe not. But as a mayor of New York, that now he has a bigger responsibility. And he has me and other rabbis who, like me, to advise him, and I have his ear. So he's learning. And the fact is, and this is real, that the new leadership in the world and the United States is younger, is less tolerant of Israel.
Except the president.
It's a different time. And it's very serious, and it could be very dangerous, but we have to work with the people who are willing to meet us in the middle. I don't think he's anti-Semitic. He is anti-Zionist, and unfortunately, people don't understand the difference.
Yes.
But I believe that inviting him was the right move, because now we can build a bridge. We can be in dialogue. If I would say, I don't want to talk to you, where will he go?
Exactly.
And I will say one more thing. After the terrible attack in Sydney,
yes,
I worked with his team, and I helped him compose the statement that he came out with, which was a very good statement. And then he was in contact with Chabad, and he went to the Chabad headquarters and to the tent, to the rabbi's grave, to pray. and to honor his solidarity. That would not have happened if there weren't more Jewish leaders, rabbis, and communities that would come towards him.
Yes.
So the trick is not to say either or, the trick is to say both and. How do we meet in the middle? Not always easy.
It's important. It's important to open doors, not to close
It's
them.
important to build bridges. The Jewish community right now is in such a tough place, and it's real. I mean, I'm an Israeli citizen. I'm there all the time, between the right wing, the left, between the thing what's going on. It's really, really hard, and we have to try as much as we can, whether it's our gay children, or whether it's our anti-Zionist cousin, or whether it's my racist settler cousin, and I've got them all to take a deep breath and say, okay, let's find something we agree with. Let's begin there. I'll tell you a very short story, okay? And I know you like short answers, sorry.
No problem.
But
I'm the son of a Yiddish teacher, so I like long answers because, with full answers, but...
I can hack a Chinik all you want. All right. I'll tell you a short story. My first or second visit to Israel after October 7th, right? Really, trauma. I went to dozens of homes of people who died, or hostages, wounded, with other rabbis just to support. And there was a prayer circle in Jerusalem. Maybe a month later, everyone's crying,
yes.
Everyone's singing, everyone's praying, religious, not religious, doesn't make a difference. We need all the help we can. Fine. It ends at 11 o'clock at night, we're exhausted and we're really hungry. And we said, maybe they opened the shuk, Machne Yehuda, the market, so we can go eat a shawarma or something. Fine. So we go to the market, and it's open, just a few places are open, and there's all these trucks going around with these young Jewish kids screaming, burn the village, kill all the Arabs, like very racist stuff. And we're like, okay, well, we just came from a place of prayer for peace and love. And like, here we are. These two, that's part of our family. So I go to a shawarma place, and this guy would like, yeah, we're going to go into Gaza, we're going to kill everybody, revenge. I'm like, ugh. I said to him, okay, what's your name? Do you want the hostages home? Yes, good. We agree on that. Do you want every wounded person to be healed? Yes, good. Do you want every soldier to come home in one piece? Good. Me too. We agreed on those things. We're probably not going to agree on what happens next. Let's not talk about it. Can you please make me a shawarma? Without your politics, just with love. Ahavat Israel. Let's find what we do agree on, and not what you don't agree on. Just make me a shawarma. He looked at me like I'm some crazy lefty, which I am, and said, yalla, okay, and made me a shawarma. Took a couple of minutes. I sat on the sidewalk and I started crying. Couldn't stop. And I was there with a good friend, and he said, eat your shawarma. I'm like, I can't. I'm thinking about this guy, this racist, Kahanist, young, frech, whatever, and I love him. He's my family. That's my family. This is the family I got. And with this family, you have to find common ground. With the Charedim, with Mitnachalim, with the Smolanim, the thing. In Israel right now, it's really hard. In the Jewish world, it's really hard. We prefer to live in our ghettos,
yes,
in our tribes. I do Jewish this way, I do Jewish this way, I won't marry you, I won't talk to you, a thing. Fine. That's not going to help us. We have to find a way to open our heart, to increase our empathy, and to do what the Torah tells us. Now the Torah tells us, that's for my bar mitzvah portion, in addition to all the stuff about gay sex, what the Torah says is ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. It doesn't just say ahavta, it doesn't say love the other as you love yourself. It says ve'ahavta. There's a vav in there. And the vav, I don't know what it's like in Spanish, but in English it's and love the other. The and means stretch yourself. It's easy to love what you love. It's easy to love who you love. Your people, your kind of people, the people you live with and love with and vote with. That's relatively easy. It's harder to love the people you don't agree with. But the Torah tells us, it's at the middle of the Torah. Love harder. Try harder. And so that's bridge building. And if we don't learn how to do that in the Jewish community, among ourselves and with the others, then we're going to be in little ghettos with fear. And we weren't made to be afraid. We were meant to love. You can choose. Live with fear or live with love. I prefer the Ve'ahavta way.
And that's why it's important, the movie Sabbath Queen, it's important because that brings us love, bring us the bridge, not only between Jews, it brings us to all around to show what can it be Judaism, what can it be the people that it's an important bridge, like you said. It's open us to outside the Jewish community. It's also an opening for inside the Jewish community, because inside the Jewish community we have to love also everybody. That's something we learn. And I'm not talking about gays or not gays. We talk about inside the Jewish community. You are Orthodox, you are not Orthodox, you eat kosher, you don't eat kosher. Simple things. Because that's simple.
Ashkenazi, Syrian,
exactly.
Hungarian.
So we have to get, that happens, I don't know, for some months after 7th of October. But now it's still again opening. So that's why the importance of Sabbath Queen.
I'll tell you one more thing. You're absolutely right, Isaac. What's been so beautiful about this movie, first of all, I want to give my hats off to Sandy for his patience.
21 years.
21 years.
I hope he's not like a constructor worker here in Mexico, that he was paid by the hour, because then we understand why it took him 21 years.
I think he's doing okay, but you can ask him. But I want to say what's been most important about, one of the things about this film is that it goes around the world. We were just in Warsaw and Stockholm and Copenhagen and here. After every movie, every screening, there's a conversation.
Yes.
And the conversation is sometimes very lively and sometimes angry and sometimes there's tears. But it gets us to ask the big questions. Who we are. Who are the Jewish people in 2025? What are the fears? What are the anxieties? What are the hopes? What does it look like to be someone who is proud of his Jewishness but is critical of his Jewishness? What does it mean to say, I love Israel and I have questions? What does it mean to say, I take my tradition seriously, but I also take innovation seriously? And we have young people come to us and say, wow, I can be Jewish. And we have people come to me and say, for the first time in my life, I feel pride, or I'm curious. So the film is the film, and I'm very happy it's going around, but it isn't really about me. It's about what does it mean to be a Jew in 2025, and how wide can we be? How brave can we be in imagining the moral imagination of our future? And so I'm very grateful and proud, and it's in Mexico because we know some people here who are very involved. I can out Luis and other people and Gimel.
All the Gimel
Society.
They do a very interesting job, an important job, helping a lot of people and bringing a lot of things out of.
Yeah, I'm very grateful, and I just arrived in Mexico a few days ago, and so between Gimel and between people in the Jewish community who are not in the box but who want to be outside the box, including, by the way, I've already met a few Jewish people. Some from Israel, some who were born here, who are married to people who are not Jewish. And they want to be part of the Jewish community. They're raising Jewish children. And so the film is also about that. So it's a way to say, let's think about a Jewish community that is elastic, that is dynamic, that isn't afraid, but that is trying out new things.
Just to finish, because people will like to know.
Shabbat.
I know. Just tell me, what was the most fearless situation you were when you are showing this movie, and the best moment you had when you are showing this movie? First, I don't know if scary or hard moment or something to be worried or some attack, and then finish with your best satisfaction or something that happened that said it's worth it.
I'll tell you one moment that happened at a screening in Poland, where somebody got up and said, because of my political position, I am pro-peace, and I think we need to end the occupation, and I say that in the movie. And someone said, "You are a traitor to the Jewish people. And this was in Krakow, the city where my father was born. And that was hard. We then had a very powerful conversation, but that was like... Then we had a screening a few months before that in Jaffa, in Tel Aviv, Yafo. And at the end of the screening, a woman stands up and says, in Hebrew, Ani Charediya lesbit. I'm an ultra-Orthodox lesbian woman. I have never said those two words out loud before. For the first time, I am feeling permission to own the different parts of my personality and my identity. Thank you for this movie. And sat down. And then behind her, a man stands up and said, I am a secular Palestinian, Muslim. I never cared about my Muslim tradition, but because of this movie now, I'm actually interested in exploring what does Islam have to offer me and my children.
Right.
That was one after the other, and we're like, okay. So that was a moment of satisfaction. My film is helping people think about their identity in a richer, honest, authentic way. And my film is also triggering people. And I'm hoping it helps us go beyond the trigger and beyond the trauma into transformation and into tikkun, into repair. That's my job.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay.